Say Buddhist doctrine. A Buddhist doctrine means ways or means. Although we tend to forget, the thing that I wish to talk about now is the fact that Buddhist doctrines means what Buddha has taught us, and they are the techniques to remove ourselves from the agony or suffering. Our practice of Buddhist doctrine is the most important practice for us to remove ourselves from the suffering. The target is to escape from the suffering, and also there should be given condition that our acts or our behavior is for the removal of our suffering. If that is not given as a condition, then there is not much of use. The thing that I want to request you now is that a method should always be precise. It is almost same as theory in a maths. It is not something that it is only possible for someone and not possible for someone else. If you are given the same condition, then everyone should be able to achieve it. And it should also not have a difference depending on the target. But of course, there is a difference because of karma. The difference, you should always be able to make you should always be able to distinguish a difference between the difference and different. And difference is something that there is a difference in the degree of achievement, but different means something that is not possible, depending on the person who tries to it. So, like in India, in olden times, Brahmins were able to achieve their target, but untouchables, they were not able to achieve it. Then we say that is not a proper method. So, let's find out what does Buddhist doctrine refer to. So, it is a general philosophy that everyone should be able to achieve it, and it should not be something that is only possible for someone and not possible for someone else. You should understand this very clearly, and you also need a proper understanding of the proper method and also practice. We call that a proper thought. We have the thought proper. The first condition is that it's a speech of a saint or a scholar, and the second condition is that it is equal to all, and the final condition is that it is in order to remove the suffering. And another important thing is, what does a proper imply? When we take it on a very basic level, the proper implies to not doing something that is improper. It is wrong if you're practicing it habitually, knowing that it is a wrong thing. But a lot of people, while they do improper things, they assume that they do proper things. It is more so, especially in a religious point of view, and that is very serious. We say this is not a proper place, this is not a proper teaching, and this is not a proper behavior. Although it is a temple, or although you're wearing a monk robe, you should always try to remove yourself from your from the time when you're making a relationship with someone who is improper, or relationship with some place which is not proper. So proper means doing or not doing proper means not doing something that is improper. This is a very common thing, but a lot of Koreans were not able to understand it, and we continue this, and that is usually very dangerous, and it doesn't help you at all. So when we say it is improper, what is the given condition? The very basic thing is doing something when it's not good. Although it's wearing the flow of Buddhism, or whether it is not a religion, you're just doing it in order to achieve your own greed. That is very dangerous, and it causes suffering to others, and that acts as a cause for you to step into the field of suffering. So we follow rules and regulations in order to stop the things that is improper. And the act of stopping this, we say we have a proper opinion. So when we do religious practice, our religious belief should always have a proper pattern. If it does not have an accurate pattern, then mostly it is very vague, and also it will not result in a good karma. It's very difficult to identify or distinguish what is proper and improper in Korean society. I understand it's very difficult because you have never been taught. Everyone has similar Buddhist statues and everyone seems to be wearing similar clothes, and everyone seems to be reciting the same prayer. So you might ask if everyone is doing the correct thing. But if we say, if someone is cutting down trees and making logs for fire, we cannot say whether he's doing the proper or improper thing by his behavior of cutting. But we can always find out whether it's proper or improper looking at his motivation. If my motive is to sell the log and buy myself a drink, then it is wrong. But if you say by working on this log, maybe I will try to keep the room for another one for the day, then it is a proper thing. So you're not able to know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing just by looking at the action. But if you look at the motivation or the motive of the act, then you are able to find out whether it's proper or improper. You should be able to know it accurately, then only you will know the consequence of your behavior properly. Or else, even if you believe that you are doing a good deed, you'll be fooled again and again. Without accuracy in this, we won't be able to step into a proper road. So when we say it is improper, especially those who practice with this belief, if you know that your friend has been drinking all this while, but if you just meet that person for the sake of your friendship, then what good are you doing for that person? When you make friends, especially when you know someone from your religion, you should always be very cautious. or else you might be going in the same way that he or she leads. And even if you feel that you're not going in that direction, you might be influenced by your friend who is with you, and in that act, you might not be able to proceed to the way of Bodhisattva. That's why Buddha said the road to your Buddhist practice, you should always go alone, just like a horn of a cow. You should not be distracted, and you should always go alone. If you don't have any friends, then maybe it's better for you to step ahead. If you are able to meet someone who practices as hard as you and who has a proper belief and who is aware of his or her action, then it is very good. But if you're not able to meet that kind of person, then it's better for you to go alone. Just like if a plant meets a pine tree, then the plant might grow up to the pine tree, as depending on it. But if it only meets a short tree, then it can only grow as tall as a tree. So setting your mind for the practice is the most important thing. If you have a lot of improper thoughts, that improper thoughts always begin from your greed. If your greediness gets influenced by religion, and then most of the time you look for places that satisfy your greed, and that leads you to go to place of shamanism, or you might start getting interest in politics, and depending on the result of the politics, you might be swayed by the wind, and also apart from it, if you see something that you think is beneficial for you, then you always tend to follow the area, and you again miss your opportunity to practice. You might ask, what's the harm in missing it? You can always find it. But it's not so. If you miss it, then it might lead to consequence that you'll never know when you'll be falling into a hell. From my experience, even when you're doing Samatha practice, if there's a teacher who guides us, then we might be able to step straight forward. I'm sure that even you guys, when you do Samatha practice, if you feel that your practice is going ahead, then when you're at a certain stage, that you might have 2 or 3 thoughts, and the thoughts might disperse again. And from Avalokitesvara, you change to Amitabha, and from some point of view, you might change your opinion again. These kind of things, you should not listen to anyone except your teacher. And most of people who ask these questions, they do not have a strong opinion, and they get influenced very easily, and it might lead to a lot of confusion. Although you're practicing in heart, maybe there is no progress. It's a serious problem in Korean Buddhism. So it acts as a great obstacle in our practice. We won't be able to step forward. I think I'm saying this repeatedly, but there, but I keep repeating because I feel there is not many people who follows this, and even if I say so, a lot of you do not understand. And if I say up to this much, up to this point, you should be able to understand what I mean, and you should be able to cut out those which is not necessary, but you're not able to cut it out, and that's why I'm saying this again. Generally, when we have a weak belief, and so if I say so, then you might misunderstand that I'm only asking you to come to my temple, and I'm afraid that you might think so, so I cannot say it easily too. If I say something like this, then you should be able to understand what I mean, but you're not able to do so. And when I say something, you misunderstand that I'm only calling you in order for you to come to Sakjeon Temple. I went to Powon Temple, and once I was giving them teaching, and when I was teaching them about Paramil, I met some people who I know. So they came, and we were just after food. After food, we were sitting, waiting for tea, and they told me that those people who were sitting beside them, they were saying that when we say Dana, they were like, now again they're asking for money for the temple. So this just become like a disease for them. So they felt like they called me to look for a donation from these people. So there were 500 people, but they were not listening. Because there are so many teachers who came and lied so many times, they do not know how to say, how to sit, to, and whether we are making teachings inside or not. They were just sitting like this and reciting Avalokitesvara. They were only repeating this act, and they were not listening. It's only because there were so many lies that was made before. The reason for their doubts is because they have been told so many times. Listen to Dalai Lama's teaching. He never talks about his personal ideas. He doesn't say anything about the politics. He doesn't say anything about history too. He doesn't say anything like other Korean teachers. A lot of Korean teachers, they praise themselves, but I've never heard something like this from Dalai Lama. When he's teaching us, he only talks about Buddhist doctrines. So I saw Dalai Lama only sits at the on the chair of the temple when he's talking, but when he wants to criticize about other issues, then he talks on the stage. Because he believes in the power of the Buddhist teachings, he does so, and because of this, the influence is very, very great. Why didn't she come? She should be scolded if she is looking at this. She doesn't come for 2 weeks, but comes for 1 week. So we are on the page number 61.
61페이지죠.
Related to the important motive, to the original meaning or the original motive of the teaching, if the contents are facts or if the content is valid, then we can understand the valid part from the inference. The important motivation for us to practice our teachings is to achieve the sacred status. And it is also our general motivation to be born in a human or the celestial world. When you say we have gained the absolute knowledge, that also means we have achieved to attain the sacred status. The motivation for us to study does not lie in anywhere else, but as I repeat again, we should have a concrete goal. There is nothing except our motivation to remove ourselves from agony. So what is agony? That is our greed.
번뇌라는 것은 뭐냐? 그냥 간단하게 얘기해서 탐욕심이란다. 물론 그 탐욕심은
It's caused by obsession to self. We are trying to remove it because it gives us suffering. That's our motivation. Other than that, there is no motivation in Buddhism. So even if you are practicing Buddhism at a low level, it gives more condition for you to be happy than not practicing Buddhism at all. So it's always more happier to practice good than evil. So even at the low level, they recommend you to study. It is a general motivation to be born in a human or celestial world again. So our hope to be reborn as a human or hopes of other religion to be born in a celestial world, actually that is not the motive, but the thing is you are only able to practice if you are born as a human. There are not many ways for you to practice if you are not born as a human. So even now, when you look, those city mayors or those politicians who compete, if you ask what are you going to do, then they say they will do good things. But you should always find out whether it's a good action for them or for others. They're usually doing things good for them, because just like one of the city mayor who took all the money into his pocket, so I believe that was something that he did for his good. So even us, to be reborn as a human, that is not our goal, but that is only means to achieve our practice. Because the best body form to practice is to be born as a human. But if you're born as a human and if you're unlucky and if you're of a very poor health, or if you're filled with too strong greed, then you might not be able to understand Buddhist beliefs, even if you are very close to it. It's almost like I came to Yazoo and taught teaching for 30 years. Now our dog at our backyard, if it keeps barking, I feel it is barking uselessly. Maybe the dog has reason on its own, but I feel it's useless. So sometimes I come out and listen, but when I check it, the dog is only barking because the dog is scared. But I think it's because the dog has been hurt. Dog has gone through so many things, and so I feel the dog is barking for that reason. But for 30 years, if I've been saying so many things, then some of you at least should be able to come and see what am I trying to say. But so I wonder, what should I do? Maybe I should go to downtown and drink and try to gain attention, or maybe I should try to get attention by jaywalking on a big street, or maybe I should make an advertisement that I can read faces and palms very well and should be able to predict maybe after a few years you'll die at this time.
26년 4월 17일 저녁에 죽겠어. 그렇게까지 좀 해줄까?
Maybe then only they will start having interest.
그래야 좀 관심을 가지고 그러면 관심을 확 가질 거예요, 그죠? 내가 여수시내 이렇게 옛날
Last time when I checked the shamans, because she was able to tell people what's going to happen. So a lot of people visited her. You understand what I mean, right? You know the just like our action of moving rice from one truck to another, people also went in groups just like them. But if I do something like this, then the Buddhist teaching, the beliefs of Buddhist teaching will be all lost. So if you paint a paper red and if you try to repaint it white, then the color will not be shown very properly. So I just continue with my teaching, hoping things will get better. But just like last time when I was on plane, they gave me an earplug. When I used the earplug, I was able to find out that it was quite useful. And also when I tried to block my eyes, it was also very helpful. So I talked to myself, what kind of earplug do they have on themselves that they are not able to hear for so many years? When someone calls you for a drink, which is in fact leading to your death, you just follow. So when you get old, there won't be so many friends who calls you for drinks again. So where were we again? That's why in order to understand the secular status, the proper teaching should be able to withstand any kinds of rational experiment, and you should not be able to find any flaw. When you talk about this, just like maths formula, when it gives you a condition for the study, you should not have any rational flow when they give you a certain direction. If it has a flow, then it also means that sometimes it is not possible for you to practice that way. That's why you should never have a rational flow. So from general opinion, although some doubts are difficult, but it is true, then those things which are related to more simple questions, there's no need for you to doubt their reality. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. it's very easy for us to say there was a God who created this world, but it is very difficult to prove that action or that phenomenon. Even if you understand or even if you know the phenomenon, if you try to explain it, it's very difficult. Just like Professor Hawking, who is experimenting the Big Bang Theory on his last condition, it's not easy for him to explain it to common people. If you have mathematicians or physicists in front, and if you try to explain to them using 20 to 30 words, then it might be easier because they're used to this. But for someone like us who is not aware, it will be very difficult for us to understand, and it will be very difficult for him to explain to us. And that's why those voidness or cause and the effect, or also the dependence. When you try to explain about the nature of the human forms, then it's very difficult. Even for us, if we say the babies are caused or babies are made by the god of birth, then it's very easy to say. But if you try to prove it, that how they were made over time, then even if 1,000 years go by, it's very difficult. If we say it is the god of birth that gives babies, then you should be able to have babies even without marriage, and even without men, babies should be born, if that's possible. But it is impossible, isn't it? If you say the god of birth gives babies, then it should be proper to say, it's fine to say that even a man should also be able to have babies. But why is it only possible for women to have babies? This kind of phenomenon will be very difficult to explain even after thousands of years. So as I say, this kind of phenomenon is very difficult to explain, and you need to have a little more rational belief, and you need to have a little more belief in this. Furthermore, teachers are those beings, those respectable and also dependent beings. So teachers are those who will be able to guide you through the proper thoughts and also proper opinion and also proper dependence and also proper experience. Here, what do we refer to when we say proper? The word proper refers to the fact that teachers should be able to guide you through the road to the properness. And teachers, they always stop those wrong things from approaching you. If you say that there is a teacher who flatters you, even if you have not been able to achieve so many stages in teaching, that is only flattering. That is not a proper teacher. But a lot of people, they also go to places in order to be in order to be consoled by those. And you also say you have no idea how good our monks are. But then when I ask, so what has he done for you? Then you say he gives us food. But you don't know that it is actually an act that is not helping you at all. Teachers are those who gained enlightenment through the power of grace or compassion.
자비심이라는 것은 아부하고 곡세하고 친절한 것을 얘기한 게 아니에요. 여기에서 친절한 영자 뭐가 있지? 이나 잘하세요. 친절한 영자. 금자씨?
We are not talking about general kindness. Think about it. Who is the most kind surgeon? The kindest surgeon is someone who performs surgery on you. Let's say there's a doctor who's very kind, and you had a lot of inflammation in your stomach, and he said, in a very kind way, we are going to cure your stomach, but you died after 4 days. So think about it. Is it the kindness that you wanted? But you feel that he was very kind. There's no kind doctor. How can he be kind when he's opening your stomach?
솔직히 얘기해서 배를 찢는데 뭔 친절해? 그래요, 안 그래요?
There can be no kind doctor because all the medicines that they give you is very strong. There is no medicine that doesn't require you to not eat food after you eat the medicine. But a lot of those medicines, they are antibiotics, and also they are very strong. That's why it also harms your body in other way. Doctors only give you this kind of medicines, but can you say he's kind? But he's actually kind because his kindness has been performed in order to prevent you or to cure you. He performs endoscopy from your throat, and also he opens your stomach, and those tormentors things. He performs everything on you, but why do you go and see a doctor? You go there to survive. You go and see them because they remove your suffering. When we talk about teacher, it is same so. Our monk is very kind, and he's very nice. So when I ask what, you say he called me at home and he asked, have you had breakfast? If you say no, I haven't, then he tells you to prepare some food and eat. When you say if he's kind, then it is also wrong. Because when you talk about kindness in this regard, you also say he's only kind because he is teaching you the ways to remove yourself from agony and also greed. Or else he's not kind, he's only flattering you. He used to say this before, even in Hwam Monastery. I wonder, why is he so kind? Like when we had some water from trees, he would visit all houses and he would deliver. Just like someone who delivers post, he was very active at delivering those to others, and also if a monk brings this kind of water to their houses, they cannot just accept it, and so in return they would try to give the monks a little more. So if you look at it, then that was almost like an act of merchandise. So when we say a teacher has a great compassion, it is not the compassion from the other way, but it is actually their guidance, guidance for them to remove themselves from suffering. I have been saying not to drink for 25 years, but he never listened, and he died after all. So maybe my method is very weak. Each time I met, I almost threatened him. I threatened him that in this way you will die of liver cancer. But he said it gives me pleasure to live after a drink. That's why he said all the time. And after all, finally, it is not possible. I was not able to change even a fact of this. Last time I was walking on the park and I met your husband.
저번에 가다가 보살님 해안공원 가다가 저산이
The great compassion that a teacher has begins from his true motivation for the goodness of all mankind. There's no other motivation other than his motivation to remove everyone from suffering. So even if you're carrying the water around, you might ask if that's the way to remove suffering. I don't understand that even now. Is there a way to remove yourself from suffering after drinking that water? Think about it. It's not like you're giving food to those who's hungry. Likewise, through the power of great compassion, teacher should help the student in order to remove the obstacles, and also they teach you or they show you or guide you the way to achieve enlightenment. So a teacher should be able to predict the obstacles that's coming on your way, and should grow the seeds for you to get rid of the suffering. That is the duty of the teacher. If that's not achieved, it's also not possible. Buddha has preached through his own experience. So after Buddha attained his enlightenment under a tree, he realized that it's possible through this way. And after his own realization, he made a new program. Most of the programs before him were those which does not lead to enlightenment. And from that point, Buddha spoke about Four Noble Truths and 12 Dependent Risings. So he set his target precisely. His target was to remove the suffering. he realized that the reason why people suffer is because of the greed,
것을 갖다 너무나 정확하게 판단하시고 그
and the means to remove
것인가를 갖다
or escape the suffering. He made theories and he made the formulas, and throughout his life he taught this.
식을 만들었단 말이에요. 그걸 우리들에게 평생을 말씀을 해주신 거야.
Buddha was very able to understand the the substantiality of the finality, and he was also very able in showing us the truth behind it. When you say the ableness, when I was talking to Richard here, I asked him how does he see as Dalai Lama, and he said Dalai Lama is very able.
어떻게 보느냐 그랬더니 아주 노련한 스승.
He said, after listening to what Dalai Lama said, he was so sucked up in the mood, and by the time he turned back, he realized that he was in very deep.
나중에 돌아보니까 상당히 깊이 들어와 있더라.
And so he said Dalai Lama is very able teacher.
노련한 선생이다.
Forget about ableness is way beyond that.
노련한 아주 뭐 노련한 정도가 아니지. 노련한 정도가 아니지. 그 오랜 세월
It's because of his endless virtue that he has been practicing for all his life. People are usually very touched, and they open their heart to Dalai Lama's teaching.
열리고 그렇게 되죠.
The sacrifice of Buddha is unconditional and it knows no rest.
모르는 것입니다. 그러니까 부처님의 헌신은 썰렁개구로 하자 그러면 아주 세신보다도 헌신이야. 하도 맨발로 다니시고. 근데
The sacrifice of Buddha does not have any motive other than for the good of the others. All sacrifice that Buddha made was for his wish to remove everyone from suffering. That was the only thing that he desired throughout all his life. If you believe in the previous lives, then you can also know that throughout all his previous lives, there was the only thing that he desired for. That's the only thing. So at times I also think that I should do the same, but when I look back, I'm always back to who I am. So I cannot sacrifice, and I'm not able to do much too.
헌신도 안 되고 세신도 안 되고 그래. 그래서
So the sacrifice for the good of everyone is called the great compassion, and also that knows no rest.
그리고 지칠 줄 몰라.
And also Buddha knew no rest. Even Dalai Lama, although all his secretaries asked him to reduce the teaching, and also they asked him to rest, not going overseas, and they hope to see him longer. But Dalai Lama says he's grateful to what they say, but if there's even one person who wishes to listen to my teachings, then I wish to proceed, and there is not a question for you to decide. He is very devotional.
참 헌신적. 그리고 그 법회를 하는 중간에 사람을 만나고
Even his acts of meeting people in between the teachings, he tries to meet as many people, and even through his speech or one speech of his, if that changes the heart of, or if that plants a seed of Buddhism in the person's heart, then he tries to meet as many people. And just like Buddha, he does not have so many conditions. There is no condition. Buddha has been preparing for the profit of all mankind throughout so many years, throughout so many ages, about things that people did not have interest. The wish of people or the interest of people were having power. They wanted to have more power by colonizing more countries, like someone like Genghis Khan. And also some people only studied the ways to earn as much money as they could and live a happy life. And some people, they desire to be born in a heaven and live happily forever. And also, if you study Taoism in China, they wanted to become a living god. When I was young, I used to listen. The Venerable Wanyu still lives in Jiri Mountain. But from the books I read that he died at the age of 72. But it seems like there was someone who heard, who saw him alive. There was a woodcutter, and he went to a deep mountain, and once he lost his way, and he saw a heaven in the mountain, and there were so many peace trees, and there was a big rock, and there were two old men with a long beard sitting and making paduk. And he said his name was Wanyu. And after he came out of that heaven, 500 years passed by, and by the time he came out, there was no evidence of it. And I heard this so many times from monks in Huang Monastery, and so I used to wonder when I was young. So the interest was making a certain way of breathing and live for a long time. But I felt like that after I went to 3,500 meters above sea level. I don't understand how you desire to go up 8,000 meters above sea level and live happily. Those things which are very vague, you wish to become God while you're alive. If you go to this restaurant, you can see the pictures of so many gods. But if you look at those pictures, they all look like a person patients who is suffering from high blood pressure. They have huge bellies, and their eyes are protruding, and from the looks of it, they do not look like a god. Buddha has not been preaching those things, but Buddha's 100% interest was to remove the suffering of the mankind. And he achieved that. We call that enlightenment. If you wish to believe, you should try to believe in those. If you believe in them, then it's inevitable for you not to follow. But for example, if you say, let's go to Seoul, just because candies at your home are more delicious, you wish not to go to Seoul. By the time you realize that there's not so many things, there's nothing special about the candy at your home. By the time you realize it, it's about time for you to die. You're already old enough. So next life you're born again and you repeat the same. And by the time you realize, it's already too late. Now you think that, there's nothing special about marriage. But next time you're born again, then you get married again.
지금 생각이에요. 여러분 지금 보면
Now, you might wonder, why haven't I thought about this when I was in 20s? Tell me, what do you think?
고려하고서는 어쩌요?
If you had this thought when you were in 20s, would you have married your husband?
그냥 안 만났지.
You cannot answer because it's recorded.
참 중계되니까 말도 못하고.
Just like this keeps repeating.
이게 그렇게 계속 쏟고 뱅글뱅글.
The problem is when you're in 20s, you don't think about them.
20대 그 생각이 안 난다는 거야.
You always remember after the train has left.
또 기차 간 뒤에 할 걸 그 생각이 난다는 거야.
Tell me, how about you? Will you get married again next life?
다음 생에 또 할 건가?
As of now, you don't want to. But again, next life, you'll forget.
지금 같으면 안 한다고? 근데 그때 잊어버린다니까 또?
And again, next life, when you're about 60 years old, you remember again that there's no point in marriage.
힘없는 나도 하나.
It's nothing special after so much time has passed, but you always get fooled.
인생 쏟는 거야. 그래서 끄덕끄덕 계속 쏘고왔어 이제 쏟고 하면아 그렇지만은 왜 역시나 또 마찬가지고.
You believe that all other children are very harsh to their parents, but not my children, but they are all similar.
다 그 괴가 거의 비슷비슷해. 비슷하거든요. 또 이제 여러분이 효자라는 자식한테 어느 때쯤 되면 쏘갔다는 걸 아는
You realize that you have been fooled by your children by the time that you are sick or you have Alzheimer or you're not able to look after yourself. By the time you realize them, you're already like this. But don't get fooled, and don't get fooled.
쏘지만 않으면
If your children does something like that, when you're in that kind of condition, you just start thinking about it. That oh, I knew that you'll be doing this, then you'll be hurt less. But if you believe that, oh, I can't believe why you are doing this to me, when I had you in my stomach, I had suffered this much, and I breastfed you for so many years, and when you had to go to school, I suffered so much. If you say all these things, the children might say that's obvious, but it is not an obvious thing for children to look after your parents or look after their parents. So don't be so fooled.
대답이 힘이 하나도 별로 썩지 마시오. 그냥 그렇다 그러고
Don't be fooled, and feel it's fortunate that your children are not evil. Maybe you had a little more karma with them. When I look at eyes of some people, they look like it's a disaster.
그런 눈빛이 있어. 낭패라고 스님 말씀 들어보니까 그런 것 같은데 이게 낭패 당했고. 그러니까 우리말에 참 말이야. 품의 자식이지. 품 안의 자식이지. 품
Just like I was saying, the children, when you can have them in your stomach, it's your kid. But after they are out of your stomach, then it's already not your child anymore. Considering and understanding these things, you should always try to have faith or trust in Buddha's teaching. You should always try to listen more and understand Buddha's teaching. By the time that you feel that, oh, if I have attained this much, then it should be enough, then that by the time you think about them, then it is a shortcut for you to go to hell. Therefore, when you are trying to prove a certain topic or a certain practice, then it is a wise thing to infer the teachings of some scriptures, of a particular scripture. So the thing that we are talking about now, you should also infer the teachings of Abhidhamma, but it is more important for you to check whether it is in condition with the Buddha's teaching. So you should not misunderstand, but it is a precise analysis. Because of Buddha's this speech, this has been done. You need this kind of precise analysis, but you should not be making judgments on your own. You should not just underestimate it or just overrule it at the same time. So everything should have an evidence. So through this procedure, you can remove so many errors and so much doubts. If there's a part that you're suspicious, or if it's wrong, then you can always change it. And also you can achieve the motivation for you to have a new insight. The basis of compassion lies with equanimity. So if you ask what is our compassion, some of you might feel that compassion is a feeling that that's aroused in your heart for the good of others. Your act of making the judgment between whether it's compassion or not, then it should be based on the equanimity. So if you say, if my children or my kid is sick, then you run to the hospital. But if children of someone else is sick and if you are ignorant, then there is not compassion, but there is just an affection. First, in Munsu Nursing Home, we gave free food to elders. And while we gave them food, a lot of them missed and they didn't come. So I thought maybe they are not able to come, so I asked them to check. And so those people who goes to church, when they ask priests, they say you should not go and eat in the Munsu Nursing Home. So when I asked why not, they said it is the food of evil, and so if you eat that food, then you go to hell. Then the grandmothers, since it's about time for them to die, and it's a big thing for them not to go to hell, so they choose not to come. So I thought about it. Did I make food that makes you go to hell? And after 1 or 2 years, because grandmothers living in the neighborhood, They said the food is very delicious and it feels good to have our stomachs full. And so they realized that the heaven, going to heaven or hell, is a matter of time. It's a matter after your life, after your death. So they gradually came and they asked me, is it food that you offered to Buddha before? I said no. And is this food that you use while offering? I said no. And also the fruits. I bought it from shops and make food. And then they said, oh, I can eat this. And I said, yes, please. They're looking for excuses to eat. First, listen to me. It's better to eat. It's better to live. It's better to have your stomach full, even if you die tomorrow. But then they asked, will I not go to hell? And I said, from my knowledge, you will never go to hell. I can assure you, I can guarantee you that after eating this food, you will not go to hell. This is not enough reason for you to go to hell. And they say they knew about this too, but they're just a little scared. So when you think about it, so if you had the So if you had the sense of discrimination while you are making food, then it is not an offering of food. It's not a proper way. So during Shilla dynasty, they believe in equanimity. They also had the equanimity teaching. So during the time of that teaching, the equality teaching, even the king, he came and he also fed the same food on the floor. So when you talk about So if you do not believe in equanimity, especially at the time of suffering, and if you go to heaven or hell because of this food, then I believe it is only from your sense of jealousy. I don't believe that for someone who is poor and eating a meal, I don't understand how that can act as a trigger point for you to go to hell. So every time I tell people to have the sense of equanimity and do it. This is what I like about Buddhism. There's not even a single person who gave me tackles regarding this. Why with the money that I donated? Why with the money I afford? Do you give food to those poor people? And why do you give food for those Christians or help others? If there's someone who tells me something like this, then I'll be very, very, very upset. But I heard that it happens in somewhere else, in some other monasteries. Why with the money that I offer, do you feed those? Do you feed those with different religion? That is very narrow-minded. And also your belief that you will go to hell just because you don't believe in God, that is also very narrow. The sense of equanimity is important. Even it's the same even for us. The point where you're not able to practice it is you eat delicious food at your home, but you do not give the same to the beggars. Because you're not answering, I think you're giving the same. The beggars nowadays, because of their privacy, they do not come out.
무슨 얘기인지 아시겠죠? 옛날이나 지금이나
The people living below poverty has not reduced if you compare to olden times.
줄어들지 않았다.
So the sense of compassion is.
그래서 자비심은 나는 그래서 기독교도 사랑의 마음이다 그랬더니 거기에는
Even in the Christian, they say it is based on love, but without the sense of equanimity, there can be no love there. But it is just all different.
절대적으로 평등심이다.
Compassion should always be based on equanimity, and that's what Buddha taught us.
부처님께서 설파하시고 조사스님께서도 거듭된 밝히신 바예요.
Compassion is one of the very basic reason for us to realize the status of absolute knowledge.
가능하냐?
There can be no practice without compassion. It is impossible.
자비심이 없는 수행이라는 게 전혀
It is same as you are switching on the light, but you are expecting brightness without warmth.
따뜻함이 없는 밝음이라는 것이 존재할 수 없는 것과 같다.
Love without the compassion and also equanimity, it's not possible to have love. One of the conditions that's required for your enlightenment,
자비심. 그 자비심의
that is the equanimity.
확보돼야 될 핵심이 평등심이다.
The compassion is very important even in the very basic stage of your practice or in the middle stage and also even in the stage after you complete the practice.
보리심을 이루는데 일체 중생이 고통을 육도윤회를 하면서 고통을 끝없이 거듭 받는다라는 전제를 놓고 그 고통을 끊지겠다라는 것이기 때문에
The compassion sometimes also acts as a cause for your sense of bodhisattva, and also it should be based on the condition that through the 6 paramitas you also try to save others from all their sufferings. It's the same whether you practice the 6 paramitas or whether you practice in the Four Noble Truths or
심을 행하는 것도 마찬가지예요.
in any way.
자습법을 행하는 것도 마찬가지예요. 그래서
And even after Buddha has attained his enlightenment
깨달음을 이루시고 난
for 45 years, he never rested
45년 동안
and he preached
쉬지 않고
for the good of mankind, just like this. Even in the beginning, in the middle, or in the end, the compassion acts as a basis.
자비심이 전제가 된다.
Because in Korean Buddhism, this basis is weak.
전제가 허약하기 때문에 아주 불법자
The sense of Buddhism or the Buddhist teaching does not affect so many people or is not able to form the grace for the others.
그러면 우리 이제 김구라 씨가 그 뭐야 코미디언 김구라 씨가 뭐 부인이 절에 다닌다고 그러고 근데 그 아들 동현이가 나와서 얘기하는 거 들어보면
You know this comedian, or to say Kuragim, he said it seems like his wife is going to temples, but
뭐라고?
his son came on TV and said it seems like she's not going to temple but goes and meets shamans, and also said his wife drinks a lot.
그 부인이 아주 술을 잘 마셔. 그러니까 그냥 그게 불교라고 이 이름을 붙인
So it is something that we cannot even call Buddhism, but this kind of condition is something that we see all around us, pretending to be Buddhism. So we should not do this. So now the question is, how do you practice compassion?
질문은 자비심을 어떻게 수행하는가 하는 것입니다. 자비심을 어떻게 수행할 것인가 라는 문제다. 이제 자비를 수행하는
So now I'm going to explain about how to practice compassion. First, you have to grow the sense of equanimity, and from here, you should be able to. From here, you have to develop the seed to remove all attachment and also anger.
평등심 확보라.
So,
여러분이
when you earn money and
돈을 갖다 자식에게
until the time that your children goes to college, how much money do you think you'll be spending on the kids? You're spending about 5 million per person. So if you have 3 children, you spend about 15 million, right?
자식이 3명이면 15억을 썼습니다. 그죠? 예. 썼는데 다른 아이들에게 내가 돈을 벌어서
So now let's compare how much money have you spent on other children in comparison to your children for them to overcome their suffering. It's equal, right?
평등하죠. 예.
I think it's very equal.
예. 엄청 평등하죠. 예.
Think about it. Do you possess the potential to say it's equal in your head? Think about it. If you possess the power, or if you think you have the position to say it's being equal, whether you prostrate 108 times or 1,000 times,
1000배씩 절을 했다라고 한다면 좋습니다. 그 1000배씩 절을 한 것을 갖다 다른 아이의 행복을 위해서
okay, let's see, it's fine. Have you ever done the same for the children of others?
100일 기도하는 가운데
Even for a day, even one of hundreds. Think about it. If there were time you have done it.
있는지 한번 봐. 원이차공덕 보거벌지하등 여중생 당생극 낙국 동견무량수 개공성불도
We do remember them, but
외우기는 한다. 나와 모든 중생이 저 가떼 빠라 삼가떼 보디사바.
I wish to go to the same on the hills of the enlightenment with others, just like your prayer.
이렇게 했는다. 그러니까 우리는 결국
Think about it. Have you done, or are you only doing this to those who has your DNA under the name of love? This is just an attachment.
하고 있다. 애착심.
But at least for those who are present here in this place, under the power of Mahayana, we should have the sense of great compassion, and if we practice it in Yasu, then I believe there will be no one who doubts the power of Buddhism. Our single act, although we claim to go to temples,
절에 다닌다고 하면서 다른
from the eye of those who does not go to temples, if they say our behaviors are very selfish, then we are committing a big crime for them.
그네들에게 우리는 엄청난 죄를
Why is it so? Because we gave them the seed for doubt or suspicion.
힘을 일어나게 했습니다.
They might start thinking that there is nothing special about the beliefs of Buddha. Why is it so? Because through people, we are able to show the greatness and also the power of Buddhism.
되어 있고 드러나게 되어 있기 때문에 그런 것이야.
So, but when I talk about these things,
이런 얘기를 하면
they might say, "Oh, I understand." But when I ask you to try to practice a little more,
하십시오. 그러면
then you say, "A person like me or someone like me can't."
이렇게 그래서
So you should try to have the sense of equanimity in you all the time. If you don't do that,
그렇게 하지 않고서는 내가 점점
then you will soon be returning to yourself due to your own attachment and also due to love of yourself. Let's end today's teaching here. What day is it today? What's today's date?
오늘 며칠이죠? 응? 응? 양력 오늘 초파이네. 그 12일 날은 그 광양의 용장사 대웅경 낙선시 하는데 여러분이
Soon is going to be Buddha's birthday. We are going to the temple on this day, and so please sign up for the buses so that we do not have the problem in matters of transportation.
5월 4일 날 5월 4, 5월 5, 5월 6일이 또 그건데
On 4th of May, we will have
4일 날 수록제 하는
we will have the ceremony for the water, and so please have your interest. And on the 6th of May,
전체 그 하루를 갖다
which is on Buddha's birthday, we are going. Just imagine that you are going to spend the whole day in Sokchon Monastery. In the morning, we will have the teaching of Nechun Kutenla, and
오전에 이제 내 중스님
he's going to pray, and he's going to give us a little teaching, and he's going to give you a little token of blessing, and also you're going to shower the little Buddha, and after that you can have lunch, and after lunch those who finished earlier, you can come up, and here we are going to have the lyric of Buddha here, and the Buddha's lyric will arrive Korea around 2nd or 3rd May, and we are going to have it here, and after your lunch is done, you can come up and view this. Although they say it's a lyric of your finger, of the Buddha's finger, I don't think it's the finger, but I don't think it's this bone, but I think it's the wrist.
요 뼈가 아닌 것 같아. 부처 어디냐 뭐 델리 박물관에 그 살이 다 폐체했다가 이제 발견된 살이라서 델리 박물관에 그 있거든요. 그거는 여기 이 뭐냐면 응치 있죠, 그죠? 요 살이에요. 근데 그거는 이제 이렇게
The relic in Delhi University is a part of sacrum, and although it's a little broken, it still maintains the body.
그 살이하고 그다음에 그쪽에서 이제 분사리가 10과가 또 올 거예요. 와서 이제 모시고 저한테 이제 분사리 존자님께서
You're also going to have some lyrics that Dalai Lama gave me, and from the lyric that he gave me, the lyric has become a little bigger. So we are going to have the lyric
자리하고
of the
자리가 한 16과 정도 이렇게 이제 모시도록 할 거니까 여러분이 챙겨갈 수 있는 기회를 주변 분들도 이제 오후에
we're going to have the lyric of the wrist and also the lyric that Dalai Lama gave me. And so I'm going to have the lyric here for until 5 o'clock for others to see. And so I hope you call others around you and try to make it shown to as many people as is possible.